All right, so I've done my highlighting. There are a few references here that I want to follow up on, and I like to highlight those as well. And I'll show you how I use that as kind of a reminder to look up at those papers. Yeah, so it's easy to find these references. I just highlight, right click, search with Google. That's the book. It's not a good example. Let's do Lopez da Silva. And here we go, neural mechanisms. And you can use whatever source you need to find the PDF. I have the Zotero extension saved as a Zotero extension in Brave here, which is really nice. It drops it right into Zotero. All right, so I've made my annotations and I saved the PDF. Now let's go back to Zotero. So here's my PDF. It is annotated now. I've done my highlighting. Excuse me. So what I want to do is right click and go to manage attachments and then extract annotations. You can see Zot file is running over here. And now I have a file of my annotations. So this is a bit of strangeness. It adds some junk onto the name of the note. So I just double click that to open the note. The junk goes away and they don't seem to know why that happens on the forums. Now I can right click, use the MD Notes plugin for Zotero, so another program, MD Notes, and click Export to Markdown. And it's asking me where to save the Markdown file. This is the, once again, the references folder inside my Obsidian vault. So I just save it there, and now have a link to the Markdown file in the Obsidian vault. Now, I want to be sure that this reference is in my aim2, so I'm just going to drag it up there, and you saw the plus sign light up, so it added it to aim2, the aim2 collection. That was Schurman that we were working on. Here it is. Now, since I added that reference to aim2, Better BibTeX has now updated the bib file in the references folder so that I can, all right, so here is my Obsidian notes now. And so I'll just create a temporary note here. And now the reference for Sherman is in the bib file. And I'm using the citations plugin for Obsidian to read that bib file. And let me use those references. So let's look at the settings quickly here. Excuse me. So the database format is BibLaTeX. The database path is references and then aim2.bib, which is what Better BibTeX is updating automatically from Zotero. My literature notes are also in references, and There's some site key stuff here. So I think these are the defaults that I'm using here, but it doesn't really matter the way that I use it. This is, so when I do the next step, when I create a new note for this Schurman paper, it's going to use this template to create the heading for the note. It will have the title, the author's year, blank space for tags and aliases. Then it will have a link to the Zotero entry, which is really cool. It will have abstract, and then it will insert the abstract if it's available. So let's see that in action. All right, so I'm going to I have a shortcut for this, but I'll use the menu so that it will make more sense. Insert literature note link. And I've forgotten that this doesn't work very well when you're using the menus, so I'll use my shortcut, which is Control-Shift-L, and there it is. So this is the lookup of all the bib entries that I have for this aim2.bib. And that was Schurman, and I don't see it. So the citations plugin says that it automatically updates, but I have found that it doesn't. So I have a shortcut that will reload Obsidian. If you're using the command palette, so reload app without saving. That will cause Obsidian and also the citation plugin to reread all the files, and so you'll have the updated bibliography in the citations plugin. Now I'm using my citations shortcut key, which for me, I've set it to Control-Shift-L, and we should be able to type the reference name, which was CHURMANN, and it should be. So this is one of the things that I don't like as well about the way that Obsidian and some of the plugins search for files, because it finds too much. So I can't find it by author name. There it is, Schurman 2001. So you see I was typing the whole name and it didn't find it, but part of the name and it finds it. So anyway. All right. So this was a new entry. When I did use the citations plugin to look it up, it realized that there wasn't a Markdown file for this reference. And so it created one using that template that we set up, or that we looked at a while ago in citations settings. So title, author string, and so forth. So now if I open this, so I just did a shift command click on that to actually open the note, you see that it's filled in those fields for me. Functional, the title, the author's year. Here's my link back to Zotero, which is really nice, and then the abstract. Good. This is the note that I use for this paper in Obsidian. And so if I do an open, so I just use my open shortcut, and I search for Sherman, we see that the extracted annotations are here in references. So these are the annotations that I exported a while ago when I right-clicked on the extracted annotations and saved them to the references folder. So these are all the highlights that I made in the paper. And you can see that it even has links to Zotero, which will open this PDF to the correct page for each of these highlights. So I don't want to have these two things in my references folder because I'd rather keep up with one thing as two things. So what I do is I just highlight all of this stuff and I copy it and then paste it into my reference note. Then I delete that, the annotations file. I go back to Zotero. I delete the link to the annotations because the annotations file is not there anymore. But the extracted annotations are still here within Zotero if I ever wanted to export them again. So now we're going back to Obsidian. And so now I have some notes that I have thought about on a superficial level. I read this and thought, oh, that's interesting. That might be helpful at some point. So what I want to do, or what I would do then with these annotations is I would read this excerpt. So this is fresh in my mind because I've just read the paper, just did the highlighting. And so let me find something here.